Hello and welcome to The Last Video Store, the show where I, Alexei Toliopoulos, talk to people about their favorite films. And joining me on the show today to talk about some of their favorite movies ever is the iconic, the fantastic, one of the great singer-songwriters ever in Australia. We've got Missy Higgins. Isn't that freaking cool? We've got Missy Higgins on the show today. And I'm going to tell you what we do. We talk to Missy about a new release film that she loves, and two weekly titles, two of her all-time favorite movies. And then I'm going to give her a recommendation based on her taste. And to show you a quick version of that, I'm going to talk about an online order that we just got. And the way that you can do an online order for a personalized film recommendation from me is by giving us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or your pod app of choice and leaving a comment in your review with your combo. You can do this on YouTube, you can do this on Instagram, wherever you get the show. And this one comes in from a YouTube comment from Lands1964, who commented, "Dear Alexei, wonderful episode indeedy. Really enjoyed your Stilgar impression there." So of course it's from our Mitch Orr episode where we talked about Dune Part 2. Seems like in that very moment, you yourself tapped into those beautiful orange dunes. I would feel honored to get your staff pick with my following new release weeklies. Their new release is Mega Toliopoulos, aka Megalopolis by Francis Ford Coppola. Although he hasn't seen it yet, but I'm sure it's wild. I have seen it. I've even been in it, and I think it is wild. And then the weeklies are Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, a comfort watch for him. I'm always struck by its unusual progression, he says. And Leave No Trace, which is a great, great film that I give a huge recommendation to you watching and listening right now, because I love a bit of civil disobedience and nature in art. Have a beautiful day, my dears. And my recommendation to you, taking all of those together, I'm going to give you something in that post-apocalyptic Australian space, The Rover. The Rover, starring Guy Pearce, a fantastic, low-key, desolate Australian film from Animal Kingdom filmmaker David Michaud. I love that movie. Really whack performance from Scoot McNairy as well, and Rob Pattinson. So check out The Rover. It's exactly in line with the 3 films that you chose. It's a perfect recommendation. So we're going to do a long-form version of that right now with Missy Higgins. Her new album, The Second Act, is out right now. So check it out after you listen to the podcast.
The Last Video Store.
Missy Higgins, thank you for coming on in to The Last Video Store.
No worries. Good to be here.
Wow. Amongst the shelves.
Amongst all the shelves.
All very real?
Yeah.
When was
all these real DVDs.
When was the last time you were in the video store?
Yeah, pretty long time ago. I spent a lot of my adolescence in DVD video stores though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The $1 weeklies.
Oh, wow. We'll get you a few weeklies here today, I'm sure.
Yeah. Great.
Well, I want to ask you as well. You've got this new single out, A Complicated Truth. My God, I hate to begin the conversation with this. I did tear up listening to this song.
That's the intention.
Well, okay, intention received, glowingly so.
Thank
I'm a child of divorce, and that's definitely an aura that I give about in my entire life.
Yeah.
But it really spoke to me. It's basically, I guess to describe it, it's you communicating to your child about separation.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about introducing your child to art and stuff? That's something that's always fascinating me because, when you think about creative people, how do you introduce your child to art, or what kind of art are you experiencing with your child now?
Yeah, it's interesting the conversations that I've had with my kids about songwriting because they're really into my lyrics and kind of reading into them and wanting to know what they're about.
Really?
And also listening to other people's songs and wanting to know specifically what those lyrics are about. And it's, my youngest is 5 and it's really hard describing metaphor to her and trying to get her to understand, that certain things aren't literal, people, they're not actually saying that they are going to die. It just means that they're feeling something very strongly, and it's actually quite a hard conversation, but it's nice
it's
to
complex.
have. Yeah, and so trying to have that conversation about poetry and how certain things can just be, it can that is like a picture that represents a feeling and that kind of thing. So
It must be exciting seeing them like coming to understand ideas like that now.
Yeah, my son who's 9, I can really see him, like, he loves it when he picks up on sarcasm now, like, of something because it doesn't mean what it really means, and he'll look at me like, I know you don't really mean that, Mum. And I'm like, yeah, that's right, Sammy, that was sarcasm. So it's like all those little, shades of grey that it's interesting.
Like they're building their own sense of humour and stuff as well.
Yeah, he's got a great sense of humour.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask you watch movies with your kids?
Yeah, I do. I try, but they've got very different tastes. And Sammy's really into horror. He's like obsessed with horror at the moment. And there's not that much horror that's appropriate for a 9-year-old. But he keeps insisting that he's not going to get scared about anything. And I'm like, well, I saw It when I was around your age, and I reckon it damaged me forever.
That's one that sticks with you, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think because my older cousins were watching it and it was a sleepover, and I, peeked my head in the room and I was like, oh my God, I had nightmares for months. So yeah, it's like trying to find. He's really into Five Nights at Freddy's.
My kids are obsessed with Five Nights at
They
Freddy's.
really are, and there's a movie out, and he's just like so excited about that.
One of my nephews, he was never allowed to see Five Nights at Freddy's. This is like 10 years ago or whatever, almost now, where he would be. He was obsessed with horror, but he was not allowed to see any of it. And what he would do was he'd see like videos on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
He would just draw them. And he'd have all these
creepy,
drawings.
dark faces.
Yes, exactly. Like these creepy
Yeah.
faces of all Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff.
Yeah.
But the other one that he was obsessed with, and he's never seen it to this day, he's like 13 now, but he drew, and he gave it to me for my birthday present, a drawing of Pennywise from It. Because he just became obsessed with it.
yeah,
And it was
right.
both generations, the original one and the new one.
Yeah,
And the one that
right.
he drew for me was he'd do a line down the middle of the page. One side was the new Pennywise, the other side was the other one,
wow.
like it was split down the middle.
That's so cool.
It's
That's
very creepy,
creative.
though. Very creepy.
but creative.
It's always interesting when kids are like interested in horror because I just think it's like
I think it's the gaming thing because my son's into video games and there's a whole there's Bendy and the Ink Machine and there's Rainbow Friends. There's all the back rooms. Like there's all this
wow.
like really creepy horror kind of video games.
Yeah.
So they think they're into horror, but they don't actually know what real horror is. They just think it's like shadows and dark hallways and like jump scares.
it's always like just I guess pushing to be something that's for kids like a little bit provocative. Like
yeah, a little bit scary.
A little bit
Yeah, they
scary
love that
testing themselves.
Adrenal kind of feeling, I guess. Like, ooh.
My recommendation for kids like in horror, because I think it's one of the great like kids horror things because it's nothing too scary because it's all a bit make believe, but they ground it in reality in a good way. So have your kids seen Jumanji? The original Jumanji with Robin Williams.
No, I don't think so.
I think that's a really good one. That's
really?
that's my video store clerk coming in early. I'm giving you a recommendation. I think
Yeah,
that's
right.
a good one to kind of test the boundaries and get stuck into it.
I really wanted to show my son Gremlins. So I remember that being really scary.
Yeah.
But kind of in a, I was like, I think it's an innocent kind of scary.
It's a little silly,
Yeah,
silly.
yeah. And the gremlins in the microwave, like
Yeah.
exploding, like it's kind of gory. But it was too slow for him. Like those
Really?
old
Yeah.
movies are so slow for kids.
It's true.
And we watch them and it's like, yeah, we're totally used to that pace. But, with all the kind of Pixar stuff, it's like every second that's a different thing.
And so colourful.
Yeah, and there's not like opening credits. Kids do not understand opening credits.
Really? We go,
Yeah.
no, this is everyone who made this. Yes, this is all fictitious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tough
exactly.
thing to explain to kids. Like, why are there so many words that don't even add up to a sentence at the start of a movie?
Yeah, yeah. Why do we need to watch this? That's a good point. They don't.
Skip through it, fast forward everything.
Yeah.
Well, Missy, we're going to get you into some of your choices, your films that mean a lot to you, a new release film, and a couple of weekly titles. And then it'll be my mission to go through those, go through our conversation, use my extreme skill of empathy to read into you, to kind of hopefully recommend you a perfect film recommendation.
Cool.
New release.
Wow, wow, wow. What a beautiful batch of movies.
Yes.
I must say you have excellent taste already.
Thank you. Thank
Excellent
you so much.
taste. So we're going to talk about your new release film first. which I will tell you right now is also my favorite film of the year.
It's really good, isn't it? Yeah.
Really, really good. You've got George Miller's fifth film in the Mad Max series.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Oh, wow, I made an error straight away. Very rare. We've got Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
Action.
Tell me why you chose this movie.
I'm just a big fan of all the Mad Max franchise, really. I just think that it's so rare for a director to have made so many movies, so many in the same world, but not have compromised his quality or not have compromised on the world even. Like, it's still such a bizarre kind of place and world that he's created. And it's so kitsch in a way. Like, all the films reference the old school ones from the 80s. And there's there's a lot of nods to the originals in the more modern one. But I just think that they're all so creative, and I just love post-apocalyptic films and books too. Like, I love reading post-apocalyptic literature as well. So there's something about just getting put in this world that is, a potential future for us all. I've got such environmental anxiety that I feel like when I read stuff or I watch stuff about the future when everything's just gone to shit and we all just have to start again, it's somehow really relaxing because it's like the worst has happened.
That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, that's the worst case
And people are still
scenario.
walking around living.
Yeah, and they're hot as shit with their knives and their leather.
Yeah. That's the imagined future that you kind of like. Is it like a survivalist thing in you that you are drawn to this kind of post-apocalyptic worlds?
Yeah, I've always thought that it would be really fun to go on Survivor or something, like one of those TV shows, because I love the idea of just having nothing and having to just having to survive and figure out how strong and capable you really are, really being put to the test.
Well, I mean, you're one of the great acoustic musicians ever in this country. I think that translates immediately to a post-apocalyptic world.
Oh, really?
I think it does, because it's like people need entertainment. Look how crap their lives are. And it's like, then I think you'll be an even bigger celebrity in a post-apocalyptic world.
As long as the guitar survived,
I
I'd
think
be
it's
okay.
guitars will survive for sure.
Yeah.
Tuning them might be a little bit harder, but I'm sure.
Otherwise, I'd be plucking sheep intestines or something, horse hairs. I'd be making do somehow.
I think that's it. You'll be making do somehow. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, people need music.
People need music. They need something to feel joy around.
Yeah.
And I think what George Miller does so well with these films, it is like you're saying, like that artistic integrity. Like he's all over these movies. And he said something really interesting about this film was that he still thought, like, no matter where we are in the world, no matter what the future holds, like no matter how horrible things are, the way that he kind of built and imagines all the props, but also like the actual instrumentation of things and all the kind of like gadgets and gadgets and all those kind of things they have, he still believed that people still would want beautiful things. So aesthetics would still be a big part of it. And that's why the films have such like, not just, we're making things work together, putting things together, making things run however we can. He still thinks that aesthetics would still be important to people. And I find that like such a...
That's probably true.
I think so, right?
Yeah. And all the power dynamics and the hierarchy systems are definitely very much in place. And yeah, I just love how he creates these extraordinary characters too. Like, they have their own languages, they kind of... I can't think of any of the phrases that they use, but they're so like ochre Australian, but very much in a world of their own too. They're in the Mad Max world, these guys.
It's
the
like
way that
great
they
how
speak.
it's like grounded in that way. Like it's grounded in like that Australianness. Like that, I think Chris Hemsworth's performance as Dementus, I think best performance of his whole freaking career, right?
Yeah,
Like,
he really broke out in this performance.
truly like sensational. And it's like you're saying that old school ochreness, he's got this Australian accent that like I have only ever heard like rare. It's so rare. Like it's like it feels like a almost ancient Australian accent or something, right?
But it also is like 80s suburban, like uncle.
Yeah.
With, pulled up socks and a wife beater shirt mowing the lawn kind of thing.
Oh my God.
That kind of accent as well.
That's what I want to see. I want to see what that guy was like back before the apocalypse happens, out on the lawns with that big old hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's just spectacular in this film. And
good.
Can I ask, did you always like the Mad Max films? Have they always been part of your life?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, even as a kid, I just remember Mel Gibson and his car so distinctly. And, funny little tidbit, I actually auditioned for the last Mad Max.
Really?
The one that had Charlize Theron. And I got through to like the final stages of the auditions.
Were you auditioning with George Miller?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I did like a 3-day workshop audition in Sydney and he came in. And then for a while I was told that I probably had the part.
Do you know which part you were going for?
One of the sirens.
The wives.
One of the wives, yeah.
Wow,
the
okay.
girls, that they were kind of in the back of the
Yeah.
truck. Charlize helped them escape.
Yeah.
I know. I think because they were kind of singers. Like I think maybe in the original script there was going to be a bit more singing. But then they kept getting postponed and I think I just aged out of the part or something. Because they ended up going, no, we've kind of recast younger.
What did you have to do in the audition? Because I've heard he goes, we've got the monologue from Network for you to perform and you just do it in that character. Do you remember what you had to audition with?
It wasn't a classic audition. There was a whole bunch of girls, like maybe 8 of us. And there was a dramaturg and we were put in this room together and just put through different exercises. It was like blood sport. 2 of us would be put in a ring and got told to shout one word at each other and circle each other for 20 minutes. And then the dramaturg would be like, yes, and feel that more and go deeper into that, And it was so intense. I remember leaving that workshop going, oh my God, I feel like all my skin has been ripped off. It was a really, really, it was like going into the most intensive, immersive therapy session of my life and then leaving with no context to put any of the stuff that had come up.
Was it creatively satisfying to kind of push yourself in a different way?
I loved it. Yeah. After that, I was like, oh yeah, I want to act. This is amazing. I feel alive. I felt so alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because you're also in Brand New Day, right?
Yeah.
You know that, I don't know if people know this, but when I went to film school, Brand New Day was one of the films that they showed us when they were talking. Because
really?
each film we'd studied through genre a lot. So it'd be look at a classic film in a genre, then we'd look at a kind of postmodern or modern take on it. And then we'd often look at an Australian one, an example of the genre too. And Brand New Day was the film we looked at for musical.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Can I ask you, when it comes to Furiosa, do you think it picks, where do you think it lands for you rank-wise in the Mad Max saga?
Oh, that's too hard a question.
Wow,
That's
I'm sorry to spring it on you.
Which of my kids do I love the most?
That's my next question, by the way. That's my follow-up question.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. There's too many of them. I mean, I think my favourite was the first one. But this one would be up there because I think it dropped off a little bit maybe on the third.
Yeah,
around the middle. I really like all the recent remakes. I think they're really cool.
Yeah.
The one with Tina Turner was...
Yeah. That's Mad Max 3, Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, I felt like it was slightly losing the plot during that movie. I loved it because it was so kitsch and I loved her.
I think that kitschness and that lost plot is one of the reasons I love that film.
Yeah.
I love that.
The lost plot, that's a good way to put it.
I love that lost plot.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I actually go Furiosa as my top now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because for me, I think it does, what I love about it is it does 2 things that you kind of don't see put together, which has all that really direct storytelling that that Fury Road has, where you're on the road. It's that really direct form of cinema. But then it also has this kind of expansive, decades-long saga encapsulated around it. It somehow finds the balance between those 2 things.
Although I couldn't get this out of my head the whole time. Why does she have an American accent? It really doesn't make any sense. She's Australian, her mum's Australian, a thick American accent by the time she becomes an adult. So
yeah, maybe she was watching a lot of TV or something like that. You hear a lot of kids with those American
really
accents.
Influenced by the Kardashians.
That's the one thing that survived was a DVD of the Kardashians.
Yeah,
They're just
exactly.
obsessed with. Yeah, I do wonder that. It's I always want them to, but I guess that's part of the fantasy you have to jump in on, right?
Yeah, you do. And if you start picking it apart for, what's realistic and what's not,
Yeah, I would love if you could be the dialect coach for them. Just go okay, we've got to get your Australian accent on them.
Let's all practice singing Missy Higgins songs with an Australian accent.
That's how we get there.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts on Furiosa before we move on to your next picks?
No.
No? No. I'm trying to think if I have
so.
anything else that I want to say about it, but I just love this movie so much. It's just,
Yeah.
it really excited me. It just made me feel so freaking energized.
Yeah.
And
It's pretty amazing how he does the cross desert scenes. Like, it really looks like, oh my God, they must have spent months and months just going 100 miles an hour through the desert filming it. Like, how does he do it? How does he do those stunts?
I don't know.
Incredible.
It's just unbelievable, right? And I think why I really love Furiosa as well is like that one sequence where they're on the truck, like in this truck chase convoy type thing. I think
she's underneath.
Which is underneath, like
Yeah.
the precision of all of that and the geographical understanding, but also while it's a moving piece of geography.
I know, because it's
just so-
literally moving too. It's not CGI.
And it just feels so real. You understand where everything's happening. You understand the tension of it all. And I just think it's just absolutely spectacular filmmaking, just completely high adrenaline. The other thing I'd love to give a shout out to as well is Tom Burke, who plays Praetorian Jack in this film, who's kind of like, I guess, that Mad Max. He's the kind of Mad Max type character in this film. Did you know this actor at all?
Is he the English guy?
He's the English guy, right?
Amazing Australian accent.
Amazing Australian
flawless,
accent.
Completely flawless.
Flawless. And he's interesting because I didn't know he was going to be in this movie. I'm watching this movie, I go, who is this guy? And I go, slowly dawned on me who he is. He's best known as like an art house film actor.
Oh,
He
okay.
played, he's in this great pairing of films called The Souvenir, which is by Joanna Hogg, who, great English filmmaker. They star Honor Swinton Byrne and Tilda Swinton. And he plays like her kind of intense boyfriend who has like substance abuse problems and stuff. And then he also played freaking Orson Welles in Mank, like the Citizen Kane movie.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, I don't even know how you go, well, who should I get to play the Mad Max? Oh, this guy that played Orson freaking Welles in a film.
Yeah, I wonder how he found him. I do remember reading that George Miller was like, he heard that he wanted to do an Australian accent. He's like, oh, I mean, not many people can pull it off. I think we should probably just go with you know, whatever accent you've got. But then when he arrived in Australia and started
ready.
speaking, he was just flawless.
It's flawless. I don't know, man. George Miller, he's a genius. I mean, he always casts you, so he's got his feelers out there wide, looking for people in different places.
Yeah, he does. He's such a lovely guy too.
He's
really
so sweet,
man.
right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know how that nice man can have that fucked up of an idea, you know, and then execute it to that level.
Yeah.
But, you know,
But maybe that's why, like, he's got a healthy, creative brain. Like, he processes the dark side of his psyche through his art.
He's excising it all out there.
Yeah,
Good on him.
exactly.
Good on him, and that's how he can be so nice.
Yeah.
Well, that is Furiosa and Mad Max Saga. In my opinion, also the best freaking movie of the year. So we are linked. We are locked.
So glad we agree.
We agree. Now, shall we disagree? Probably not, because you actually have really lovely movies here with you today. We're going to go to your first weekly choice.
Weekly.
And this is from director James Mangold from one of the most fabled movie years ever, 1999. This is Girl Interrupted.
Yep.
Drama.
This, to me, feels like a true classic film. I remember seeing it on TV a lot growing up. Like, this is just one of those...
TV?
It used to play on TV a lot. And it's a long movie, so it must have gone off like 4 hours with ads on it. I can't even imagine it now.
Yeah.
But I hadn't revisited this for a long time. I saw it recently. Still, this movie slaps. It kicks ass. Can you tell me about when Girl Interrupted came into your life?
I think I was about 15 when this movie came out, and I don't know what it was about it. I think it was something to do with Angelina Jolie and her performance. Like, she was
Oscar-winning
just
performance in this film.
like fierce and violent and spidery, but also kind of manipulative and complex. And yeah, I loved how many sides to her personality there was in her character. An amazing, strong female cast.
Incredible
This movie,
cast.
yeah,
I think it has
really
one of the
good.
best ensemble casts I've ever seen in any film.
Yeah.
You've got Winona Ryder in that lead role, one of the great like stars of her generation, doing I think that kind of signature thing because she has like this kind of a depth to her that you just read in straight away, but there's also this eccentricity that I think is just perfect for this character of someone who is coming to understand their mental health and like that journey. Just perfect performance.
Yeah. She's got kind of like there's something quite delicate and fragile about her, but also a real heaviness.
And a strength as well beneath all of that.
Exactly. I think I was probably like discovering or going through the processes of figuring out my own mental health journey at that point. So like watching a movie with a whole lot of women who are dealing with, you know, that question of society crazy or am I crazy? Like who's the crazy one here? Is it me? Am I not fitting in because I'm the broken one? Or is our culture completely broken and that's why I don't fit in? And I remember like I was such a deep thinking, complex kid, especially when I got into my teenage years. Like I really struggled a lot in my teenage years. So I think seeing these other women struggling with that and also just grappling with that idea of like, is it me that's the problem or is it everybody else? But also forming these beautiful, really strong bonds. I went to boarding school as well, so there's like some similarities between a mental institution and boarding school, like all these beds in a row and the super intense friendships that you have with the girls.
Yeah, because you're with them the entire time.
Yeah, so really strong bonds, but also just so fierce with each other too. When we'd have fights, they would, oh God, they'd almost be, you know, it was blood. It was like we used to tear each other apart.
Did you see this film with those people? Because like you said, it came out when you were in high school.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't actually remember where I first saw it, but it's quite possible.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have been allowed to watch it actually in our boarding house.
Like,
it was Dirty Dancing every single night.
Wow, that's a lot of heavy themes in that one too. A lot of heavy themes.
I think we only had one VHS and it was Dirty Dancing, so it was like every weekend we're watching Dirty Dancing again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm more related to the intense girls in Girl Interrupted.
Yeah, I think this film is just, like you said, it really speaks to that idea of like the internal versus the external and like how one sits in the world around them and like how your brain kind of sits in your own head as well.
Yeah.
And I think that Winona Ryder performance is so key to that, where you kind of like, especially when you're seeing those moments of her privacy where she's diarizing like what's going on and coming to understand that around her. But it's also the juxtaposition of her and then the different people around her, played by like Clea Duvall as like this pathological liar, or really young Elizabeth Moss playing someone who has like scars and burns from like surviving a house fire, but it's also like has this arrested development problem, and like seeing all these different people and how they interact with each other. I think it's just like a true masterclass of acting and how acting can be this communication of feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the kind of the dramaturg workshop. For those girls, that would have been full on.
Truly, because it would have been like very rehearsed out, because it's one of those things where it's an ensemble, so it feels a bit play built, where they're all kind of interacting with each other.
Yeah, and they all just have like different quirks and at different stages of their development and a mental health journey. And and then Angelina Jolie's character comes in and she's like the kind of the ringleader / bully
/ like firecracker to like kind of start off. I guess like when we talk about like the cast, Whoopi Goldberg, incredible performance. A lot of the glue that holds this film together.
Yeah.
But I've come to realize that I think one of my very favorite actors of all time is Brittany Murphy.
Oh,
and just whenever
R.I.P.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I see her in something, I
she's
just go,
amazing.
she's one of the greatest screen talents ever.
Yeah, and in 8 Mile too?
8 Mile. Oh my God,
she was
she's
so good in that.
incredible in that film. 8 Mile, Drop Dead Gorgeous is another one I love. Clueless.
Yeah.
But in this film as well, it's like she is so good at finding that exact balance of comedy and like the more darker, tragic elements of a character, and being able to kind of sing with both of those notes at the same time. I think she's just one of the greatest screen talents ever.
Yeah, so sad. I would have loved to have seen where she went with her acting.
I can't. And the tough thing is you can't even imagine, because she just was such a unique talent. Wow. Girl Interrupted. My gosh. Yeah. When was the last time you saw it?
I think back then, like I don't think I've watched it. I think I watched it a few times back then because I was like, oh my God. And I think I had a bit of a crush on Angelina Jolie as well.
Yes. Of this era, and that's the thing, Angelina Jolie is I think one of the best freaking actors of all time. But she also is like, she's kind of has an interesting filmography because apart from this, it's not like that Angelina Jolie movie where the movie is great, her performance is great, and she's the key to it all. But it's like, this is the one. It's
it
like
went a bit weird around the Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of, and then when she did all the like superhero
lots of Tomb
stuff.
Raider type stuff, Wanted.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I
she's
think
still cool in
maybe
those
that's
movies.
when she had kids. I feel like maybe she just didn't want her kids to see her in really like gritty, sexy stuff anymore or something.
Her in
Which is fair
Hackers, I
enough.
think, is one of like the hottest a person's ever looked in their life.
In what?
In Hackers.
Oh yeah.
She's just
totally.
so cool. I think she's one of the coolest people on
And
planet
Gia,
Earth.
I think that was her first
Oh,
one.
wow, Gia. A forbidden movie. I'm sure they wouldn't allow the girls' boarding school to show Gia at all.
No, definitely wasn't watching that at boarding school and Home Alone. Enjoying it very much.
Well, we're going to go from one film that features a mental health institution to one that
I
features
know.
an even more surrealist, insane take on a mental institution.
Yeah.
We're talking about Terry Gilliam's science fiction cult classic,
Cult.
These films were just the first ones that came to me, and I was quite surprised at my choices. I was like, what is this saying about me that I'm choosing Girl Interrupted, 12 Monkeys, and Mad Max?
There's a certain madness about you, I might say.
Yeah, I love watching these. I just love being really transported to a totally different world.
Yeah.
A bit of insanity. I love.
And
I
this
don't
has
know.
got like, this is kind of exactly in between Girl
Yeah.
Interrupted and Mad Max,
It
where it
really
is
is.
like, the mental health thing, but also science fiction, a post-apocalyptic kind of world.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when there's a bit of a twist, and it's a bit of a kind of a psychological thriller as well. Because at the beginning of 12 Monkeys, you're seeing. Well, Bruce Willis has these flashbacks, and there's a boy, and I don't know. Can I give away spoilers?
Yeah, let's go for it.
It's a pretty old movie now.
And it's a pretty beloved movie. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people have seen this. If not, it's hard to ruin it because it's just so exciting. It's all about the journey of being on it. Yeah.
So he sees him. He basically at the beginning he sees himself as a boy, potentially being the person who started the virus, who wiped out the world. But the whole movie is him figuring out who that boy is and figuring out who the person was that started the plague.
Yeah.
So it's like it's this massive twist on its head at the very end of the movie.
And this kind of crazy, twisty time travel, like really
Yeah,
interesting.
going back and forth,
Back and
different-
forth. Especially because it
different
uses surrealism to kind of communicate those things instead of going like, hey, here's the factual way that a time travel will work. It goes
Yeah.
like, no, the rules are a bit weird. You don't have to
Yeah.
read into the rules too much.
And you can't with time travel either because it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
You gotta have
So
some
You've
kind
got to
of-
have some surrealism, otherwise it's going to do your head in.
And you got to have a little bit of suspension of disbelief with this one. But the way I really think about this film, and this is one of my favorites, and it's from an era of filmmaking that I love to refer to as the Millennium Mindfuck era of cinema. And I would maybe even put like Girl Interrupted a little bit in there as well.
Memento?
Memento for
Absolutely,
sure.
that's another one of my
Absolutely,
favorites.
Donnie Darko, all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, where it's like
So good.
the first time where it's kind of postmodern, but also trying to communicate intense, strange, complicated ideas through narrative in a kind of complicated way or a complex narrative structure where it's kind of perhaps a bit non-linear in the way that you're experiencing them.
Yeah.
And I think that 12 Monkeys is like the great sci-fi example of that. And I think partly because Terry Gilliam is a really weird surrealist filmmaker who has like this cheeky comedic background. He starts out in freaking Monty Python. He's one of the Monty
really?
Python guys.
Oh my
yeah.
God, I didn't know that.
He's the
Wow.
American guy in Monty Python. He directed one of their films, and he also was the animator. Like, in Monty Python have those kind of
yeah.
collage-like animations.
Yeah.
So that was Terry Gilliam who would do those.
Oh, wow.
And he goes on this really interesting filmmaker's journey. He makes like a lot of like fantasy films like Jabberwocky, Baron von Munchausen, Adventures of Baron von Munchausen. But with 12 Monkeys, because it's like his big step up to probably a broader appeal blockbuster type film, he kind of they're looking for a leading man. Obviously, Tom Cruise is coming up. He wants like Nick Nolte or Jeff Bridges. I think he wanted Jeff Bridges to play the Brad Pitt character. But they kept on bringing back Bruce Willis and go, we want you to have Bruce Willis in this movie. He's like, I hate Bruce Willis. He said, I don't want Bruce Willis in this
Really?
movie. I don't want him. I don't like what he's doing. But I think because of that, Bruce Willis becomes the greatest tool Gilliam's ever had in his in his artistic utensil. Like he basically tears him down. He goes, "I hate this thing that you do. It's like this snowing smirk that you do to the camera.
This hot man.
I hate
tough guy thing.
I hate the top man, funny tough guy thing you do.
Yeah.
It's like get rid of all of that. I don't want this glint." He basically goes to him, "I don't want the glint in your eye that makes you a movie star. Can you get that out of your head? Get that out of your system."
Interesting.
And so he like strips him down and basically rebuilds a whole new persona for him in this film. And I think you're seeing the true skill and vulnerability of Bruce Willis as an actor come through, because he's always vulnerable when he's like in his great works. That's why we love Bruce Willis. But I think putting that at the forefront of the character always feels in danger or always feels like this raw nerve, I think is what makes this special. And the moment that sticks out to me is like the defining moment of surprise softening in Bruce Willis's filmography. Is there's this tense kidnapping scene where he's with Madeline Stowe and she's his hostage, but she's driving him. And then Fats Domino starts playing on the radio. I think it's Fats Domino. It's like 1950s kind of rockabilly rock and roll music. And it's the first time he's ever really heard music. And so he asks for the radio to be turned up, and he becomes, like, through the exposure of music, becomes like this like slobbery, blubbering, crying mess. And I think that's what the result of Bruce Willis being taken down for this performance does. And it's like, that is the moment that sticks with me in this film.
Yeah. I wonder if he was told that by the director. Like, I wonder if the director was honest with him in the beginning that he hated his stuff.
Oh, I think he was very honest with him.
Yeah,
I think he was very honest and
I
just
wonder
like
what that
tore
was
him
like for
down.
his confidence. But
Yeah.
I guess if you're a good actor, you probably love the challenge of that, right? Like being
Truly.
completely stripped down and, rebuilt.
And I think he's like someone who's experimenting with what he's doing in this time of his career, because he's doing this. He's also just done Death Becomes Her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Death
right,
Becomes
yeah.
Her. So I think he's playing with like the campness and the comedic stuff as well. So it
Yeah.
seems like because he's the biggest star in the world, he's afforded the chance to be able to explore. But then Terry Gilliam, famous asshole, really treated him badly.
Yeah, but God, it worked.
Yeah.
He's great in that.
I think it's a great performance. I think Bruce Willis's best performance, Terry Gilliam's best film, and maybe Brad Pitt's best performance as well.
Yeah, I do love Brad Pitt in this one. The crazy scene where he's jumping from bed to bed, kind of being like an insane monkey.
Yeah.
He does crazy really well, actually.
He really
Brad
does.
Pitt,
It's
yeah.
the way that he widens his eyes, the way he like flicks
Yeah,
around and jitters
he's got the
around,
little
right?
kind of wobbly, eyes. I don't know. I think that the chemistry between Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis is really good in this movie.
It's kind of just like, it's odd because it plays like, it never feels real. And I think that's exactly why it works. You're taken on this surrealistic journey where you're going, I have to know who both of these guys are. What are they? What are they both after?
Yeah, and you feel like there's more to Brad Pitt's character's story. Like, it's not just that he's in a mental institution. He's a really big part of this story, and he ends up being a big part of the story. But you kind of I love how you get taken on these little rabbit warren. No,
Yeah.
what's the word?
I think that's a little rabbit holes, rabbit
Rabbit
warrens.
holes, that's
I
the
like
word.
rabbit
I
warrens.
like
We're going to bring that
rabbit
in.
warren.
It seems deeper.
Yeah.
A rabbit hole is quite deep, but a rabbit
Okay.
warren is twisty and strange.
Going down deep into a rabbit warren.
We're going all the way down to
Yeah.
the warrens.
And then you think, goose chase is probably a better term for
Oh,
it because
yeah, cool.
you think that the 12 monkeys
You got one
are
idea
the
about the
ones
12
that
monkeys.
started the plague, and then you learn that they're not actually the ones that started the plague, and then his dad was involved, and I just love it. I love being confused psychologically in a movie and taken on this kind of being almost like just being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Like, I love my emotions being manipulated.
And it never stops being fun in a film like this where you go like, oh, we're on a genre chase. We're on a genre journey of like being like weirded out
As
and
long
going
as
strange
it makes
takes.
enough sense in the end, nothing shits me more when you just take it on this so many goose chases, and then at the end you're still left not knowing anything, not having a clue what happened.
Have you
That
ever seen
annoys me.
the original French movie this is based on, La Jetée?
No, I haven't. I heard it was based on a French movie.
Yeah, it's like a short film, probably about like 15 minutes long, but it's by interesting filmmaker Chris Marker. This film, it's so interesting, the kind of journey, the parallels between these, because the original one, it's all told in still images, like it's photographs, and they stay on the screen still. as there's like a narration journey being taking you on the same basic plot of 12 Monkeys, but much more stripped back, a lot more poetic, like it plays on the poetic a lot. And there's only one moving image, which is a giant close-up of an eye blinking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting trilogy of films that you have here because you can start things out in Girl Interrupted, 1960s. We've got all this like kind of great like mental health journeys, all this stuff like that, the internal versus the external. Then we go into the world of 12 Monkeys. That's what happens. And then in a far off future after 12 Monkeys, that's when we're in Mad Max. That's what's going on in Australia.
Yeah.
So I think this is an actual trilogy that you could put on together.
Yeah. None of them are particularly light.
No.
Easy watching.
There's a few laughs. There's a few laughs throughout.
Yeah, maybe anxious laughs like, oh my God. Can you imagine?
Staff pick.
Well, I think I'm going to take this trilogy. I'm putting it through my brain. I'm putting it through my heart as well. It's going through two of my most powerful organs. And I'm going to put them together, run through them. I'm going through right now.
Is there a soundtrack to this?
There will be no soundtrack. This will just be the bubbling and hissing of a human body as it goes through me, as I come up with for you a recommendation. And I've got a film right here that I think it kind of fits nicely into all of these. It's a film, I don't know if you would have seen this, called Colossal by Nacho Vigalondo, a Spanish filmmaker.
I don't think I have.
Sci-fi.
I think this could be right up your alley. I'll tell you a little bit about this film because the reason I kind of chose this is it has like this strong mental health aspect to it as well, but it also has a strong science fiction genre take to it as well. But instead of post-apocalyptic, is more in that kind of Godzilla kaiju type space.
Wow.
But it also has like a strong comedic bent. So Gloria
It's got an amazing cast. How come I've never heard of it?
has a crazy cast, this
Yeah.
film. So Gloria, played by Anne Hathaway, is an out-of-work party girl who, after getting kicked out of her apartment by her boyfriend, is forced to leave her life in New York and move back to her hometown. When news reports surface that a giant creature is destroying Seoul in South Korea, Gloria gradually comes to the realization that she is somehow connected to this far-off phenomenon.
Ooh.
As events begin to spin out of control, Gloria must determine why her seemingly insignificant existence has such a colossal effect on the fate of the world. And it kind of deconstructs like the monster kaiju genre through this very surrealistic, imaginative way of internalized, mental health breakdown or like a nervous breakdown and that kind of change of like going through like a big breakup or a big career misstep in a kind of fantastical sense as well. It's just like, it's a very, very unique film.
Is it part animation? Or?
In so much as that the big creatures, like this version's Godzilla is like a big CGI monster.
Yeah.
So lots
like
of big
kind of a tree monster or something.
It's a very unique, strange monster. And this kind of comes with a bonus recommendation for you as well, because this filmmaker, Nacho Vigalondo, also made a film that I always have in mind if people say they like 12 Monkeys, I would recommend as well, called Time Crimes, which is a Spanish film that's like a real circular time travel journey, like really concise, one location time travel film, just taking you around, dark, interesting, very fun, weird film.
I love the sound of that too. These are great recommendations.
I think you'll really dig this one, dude. I think it's right up your alley.
When was it released and did it not do well? Is that why I haven't heard of it?
2015, but it's like a kind of, I think because it is a weird genre take. It's not one of those ones that kind of like, it's more independent, smaller project, but it has big ideas. I think whenever those small films have big ideas, it can either really take off and become something like, Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it becomes a kind of global phenomenon, sensation. But this one just kind of like slit through the cracks a little bit.
Yeah, right.
But I think right up your alley. I think it got
like
a kind of wicked sense of humor as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Dude, my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming to the Last Video Store.
No probs.
Beautiful taste in films. We've got Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. We've got 12 Monkeys. We've got Girl Interrupted. And you're going home with Colossal.
I am.
I pray you enjoy all these movies. Please return them to us sometime here.
Is this a $1 or is this a?
This is the combo you get. It's all $1, and
Okay.
I will be invoicing you for that dollar. I will be invoicing
Do you
you
take
for
cash?
it. No, invoice only. Invoice only. You're gonna have
Do you
to
take
pay this.
IOU?
Okay, I will take an IO in this instance. But you've got your new album at the moment as well, the second act, and you're touring it. Is there anything else you want to kind of push people towards? Let's talk about your album before we wrap things up.
Oh, not really. I mean, my album is.
It speaks for itself, that's for sure.
It's basically an album about my separation from my partner a couple of years ago, and we've got 2 kids together, and yeah, it's very much a strong narrative of trying to work through the difficult, dark, kind of messy feelings of like shame and guilt when things don't pan out like you thought they were going to pan out, at this age, and just moving into this next chapter of my life and not having a clue what the future's going to hold, and sometimes feeling excited and optimistic about that, and then sometimes feeling terrified, and it's the most raw and kind of honest thing that I've ever written, and I recorded it all at home, so it's pretty stripped back and real, and yeah, I don't know, go check it out.
It's beautiful. A Complicated Truth, like I said, just truly moved me. And I think you're so good at just communicating through storytelling and kind of like that kind of earnestness, that sincereness. That's why we love your music and like why it touches us so much.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I mean it deeply, and if I keep talking about it, I might cry in person as well. So we're going to wrap up the show.
That'll be really awkward.
Yeah, it'll be really awkward. I don't have it. There's no handkerchiefs around here. We're in a tissue shortage in the studio, so I dare not drop a single tear to you right now. But thank you so much for joining me. It means a lot. You're the best.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
The last video store.
Thank you for checking out The Last Video Store with me, your host, Alexei Toliopoulos. Please subscribe, follow, share the podcast amongst your friends as well. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, Last Video Store Batuta. So check us out and share us in all of those places. And if you want your own bespoke customized recommendation from me, you can submit an online order at any of those places, in a comment, in a 5-star review, with your weeklies and your new release pick, and I will come to you like I did at the top of this episode and give you a recommendation based on your taste. So thank you very much. Love you, love movies.